formulating a strategy that actually drives growth. So you've completed your diagnostic work, you've gathered internal and external perspectives, you've identified the real problems beneath the symptoms, you've built better decision-making practices to catch bias and improve judgment. Now comes the hard decision-making, formulating a strategy. Everything we've discussed about how your brain makes decisions, cognitive bias, and confidence calibration applies here. But strategy formulation compounds the difficulty because you're making multiple interconnected choices under extreme uncertainty about markets, competitors, and capabilities. You're committing significant resource based on beliefs that you can't fully validate, and the consequences of being wrong are severe. But here's what makes this even more difficult. Most of what passes for strategy isn't. It's goals masquerading as strategy. It's vague aspiration. It's lists of initiatives without a coherent logic that connects them. It's operational excellence mistaken for strategic positioning. We're going to focus on customer experience is not a strategy. We're going to grow 40% next year isn't a strategy. We're going to launch 3 new products is not a strategy. These might be elements of strategy or outcomes of strategy, but they are not the strategy itself. Real strategy is about making specific choices in the face of uncertainty. Where will you compete? Where won't you? Who will you serve? Who won't you serve? How will you win? What capabilities will you build? And what will you deliberately not do? For CEOs brought in on a growth mandate, strategy formulation is particularly challenging because you're not starting with a blank slate. You have legacy commitments, existing customers, established capabilities, and embedded culture. You can't just blow everything up and start fresh. You need a strategy that acknowledges where you are whilst charting a path to where you need to be. So this briefing is about how to formulate that strategy. A quick note on format. What you're hearing is the synthesis of expert published research and frameworks. We work to represent those ideas accurately whilst translating them to your specific context, that is, a CEO trying to build the organisational capabilities that enable growth. We're going to draw primarily on 2 frameworks that we use at Zockery to help customers develop a strategy because they complement each other beautifully. Playing to Win by A.G. Lafley and Roger Martin, and The Crux by Richard Rummold. Playing to Win gives you the structure for making strategy choices, where to play, how to win, what capabilities you need, what management systems are required, and what you'll measure. It's a cascade of integrated choices that hang together coherently. The Crux helps you identify the critical challenge at the heart of your strategic situation, not the collection of challenges that you face, but the one challenge that, if solved, makes everything easier or irrelevant. It helps you avoid the trap of trying to fix everything simultaneously. Together, these frameworks give you a way to formulate a strategy that's specific, actionable, and focused on the lever that will actually restart growth. So let's talk about how to use them. Before we get to the frameworks, we need to be clear about what strategy is and is not, because most strategy failures start with the fundamental confusion about what you're trying to create. According to Roger Martin in Playing to Win, strategy is an integrated set of choices that positions you to win. It's not a plan, it's not a goal, it's not a vision. It's a set of specific choices about where you'll compete and how you'll win. According to Richard Rummold in Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, good strategy has a kernel, a diagnosis of the situation, a guiding policy for dealing with it, and coherent actions that carry out that policy. Bad strategy substitutes fluff and ambition for this clear logic. Let me give you examples of what's not a strategy. Our strategy is to be customer focused. This is aspiration, not strategy. Every company wants to be customer focused. You haven't made a choice about where to play or how to win. Our strategy is to grow revenue by 50%. This is a goal, not a strategy. You haven't said anything about how you'll achieve that growth or what you'll do differently. Our strategy is to improve product quality, expand marketing, and hire better people. This is a list of initiatives, not a strategy. There's no coherent logic connecting these actions to a specific way of winning. Our strategy is operational excellence. This might be a part of how you win, but it's not a complete strategy. You haven't said where you'll compete or who you'll serve. A good strategy makes specific choices. Who to serve, who not to serve, how to win, what capabilities matter, and what you won't do. Someone could disagree with these choices, and that's the point. Strategy requires making choices that others might not make. And here's why this matters to you as a CEO. If you can't articulate your strategy as a set of specific choices, you don't have one. You have goals, intentions, or hope. And you can't align an organisation around hope. You can't make resource allocation decisions without clear choices. And you can't say no to opportunities without knowing what you're trying to do. And remember what we discussed about decision making. Your system one brain wants to avoid hard choices. Confirmation bias will lead you to seek evidence that vague, comfortable strategies will work. Overconfidence will make you underestimate how hard strategic execution is. The planning fallacy can make you think you can pursue multiple strategies simultaneously. Strategy formulation is where all those cognitive biases converge, which is why you need frameworks that force specific, falsifiable choices. Vague strategy leads to trying to serve everyone and serving no one well, spreading resource across too many initiatives, competing on multiple dimensions without any advantage in any, and saying yes to every opportunity because there's no clear filter, therefore never building the capabilities needed to actually win. So the first step in strategy formulation is accepting that real strategy requires real choices. Choices that some people will disagree with. Choices that close off some options to focus on others. Choices that create a coherent logic for how you'll win, not just what you hope will happen. And it's uncomfortable. It's easier to keep the strategy vague so everyone can see their priorities reflected in it. But vague strategy is no strategy. So let's talk about how to make those choices. The Playing to Win framework developed by former P&G CEO A.G. Laffey and strategy expert Roger Martin provides a structure for developing strategy as 5 cascading choices. Each choice builds on the previous one, creating an integrated whole. The 5 choices are: what is our winning aspiration? Where will we play? How will we win? What capabilities must we have? And what management systems do we need? So let's go through each one and talk about how to make these choices for a company trying to restart growth. Choice 1, what is our winning aspiration? This is your overarching purpose and scope, not a specific goal, but your aspiration for what winning looks like. For a company trying to restart growth, this might be something like be the leading platform for mid-market companies solving X platform, known for Y distinction capability, serving Z customers brilliantly. The aspiration should be ambitious, but concrete enough to guide choice. Be the best is too vague. Dominate the enterprise segment of the X market is specific. This aspiration answers the question, what does winning look like for us? How will we know if we've won? It's your North Star that guides all subsequent choices. Choice 2, where will we play? This is about scope and boundaries. Where will you compete and where won't you? This breaks down into several sub-choices. Geography, UK only, Europe, North America, global. Customer segment, enterprise, mid-market, small and medium business or specific industries. Channels, direct, partners, self-serve, marketplace. Product categories, focusing on one thing or platform with multiple products. Part of the value chain, end-to-end or specific functions. The critical discipline here is choosing where not to play. Every market segment you try serves to dilute your focus. Every geography spreads your resource, and every channel adds complexity. So for a company trying to restart growth, you almost certainly need to narrow where you play and not expand it. You stalled because you spread yourself too thin, lost focus, or tried to be all things to all customers. So the where to play choice is about ruthless focus. We will play here and deliberately not there. You need specificity. This creates clarity that enables everything further downstream. Choice 3, how will we win? This is your value proposition and competitive positioning. Given where you've chosen to play, how you will win against alternatives. How to win is not better product or great service. Those are table stakes. How to win is your specific, defendable competitive advantage. Michael Porter would call this your strategic positioning. Are you competing on cost, leadership, differentiation, or focus? Roger Martin would ask, what would you do differently that creates value that customers care about? So for growth mandate CEOs, the how to win choice often needs to shift. What worked when you were smaller might not work now. What you thought was your differentiator might not be what customers actually value. Your how to win choice should be, what do we do better than anyone else for our chosen customers? Why would customers choose us over alternatives? What's hard for competitors to copy? What value do we create that customers really care about? You will need to describe in a specific way of winning that's valuable to the chosen customers and hard for others to replicate. Choice 4. What capabilities must we have? Given how you've chosen to win, what capabilities, competencies, and resource must you build? Capabilities are not just organisational strengths, they are the specific things that you must be excellent at in order to execute your how to win choice. If you're winning through deep healthcare domain expertise and sophisticated data integration, your must-have capabilities include healthcare regulation and compliance expertise, clinical workflow understanding, data integration technology, advanced analytics and modelling, implementation and customer success in healthcare settings. These capabilities don't come from lists of what you'd like to be good at. They come directly from your how to win choice. If you cannot build these capabilities, you cannot execute your strategy. So for growth mandate CEOs, this is where you often discover gaps. Your current capabilities were built for your old strategy. Your new strategy requires capabilities that perhaps you don't have. This creates a capability building roadmap. Choice 5. What management systems do we need? What systems, processes, and structures do you need to build and maintain your capabilities and execute your strategy? This is often called a business operating system, which Zachary is an expert at architecting, implementing, and embedding. This includes having metrics that observe success and focus teams on the right levers. Goal-setting frameworks, i.e. OKRs. Resource allocation mechanisms. Operating rhythm and meeting cadence, reporting, decision-making processes and authorities, and performance management and incentives. Management systems either reinforce your strategy or they can undermine it. If your strategy requires innovation, but your systems reward predictability, you will fail. If your strategy requires speed, but your systems create bureaucracy, you'll fail. So for growth mandate CEOs, this often means changing systems that worked at smaller scale but now create drag. Or building systems that never existed because you grew through heroics instead of systems. The power of the cascade. What makes playing to win powerful is the cascade. Each choice builds on and constrains the next. Your aspiration guides where you play. Where you play determines how you can win. How you win defines what capabilities you need, and your capabilities determine the systems that are required. And if you can test the logic, if I choose this where to play, does my how to win make sense? If I choose this how to win, do I have or can I build the right capabilities? If these are my capabilities, do my management systems reinforce them? So this creates a coherent strategy instead of a random collection of initiatives. Everything connects, everything reinforces everything else. Now, playing to win gives you structure for making strategy choices, but it doesn't tell you which choices to make or where to focus. And that's where the crux comes in. Richard Rummelt's concept of the crux is simple but profound. Identify the one critical challenge that, if you crack it, makes everything else easier or even pin challenge. Most strategies fail because they try to address every challenge simultaneously. They create long lists of strategic priorities. But if everything is strategic, nothing is strategic. You spread resource thin, nothing gets the adequate focus. You make slow progress on everything else instead of decisive progress on the thing that matters most. The crux is different. It forces you to ask, what is the one challenge that, if we solved it, would transform our situation? Let me give you examples of crux versus non-crux thinking. Non-crux thinking is a scatter approach. Our challenges are product market fit, sales effectiveness, customer retention, operational efficiency, team capability, and market positioning. Our strategy is to improve all of these things. This might be true, but it's not strategic. You're just listing problems. Crux thinking. Our core challenge is that we're trying to serve 3 different customer segments with fundamentally different needs. This prevents us from building deep enough capabilities in any one segment to be truly different. If we focus on one segment and build superior capabilities there, we can win decisively, and the other challenges become easier to solve. Notice how the crux reframes the situation. It's not that you have 6 problems, you have one fundamental challenge, creating all the others. Finding your crux requires asking, what is the bottleneck preventing growth? Not the symptoms, but the root cause. If we could only fix one thing, what would have the biggest cascade effect? What challenge, if solved, makes other challenges easier or even irrelevant? And what are we avoiding addressing because it's hard, but we know is the real issue? Here are some examples of cruxes. For a company with stalled growth, the crux might be ICP confusion, serving too many customer types and being excellent for none. False differentiation, competing on dimensions that customers don't actually value. Capability gap, missing the core capability needed to win in your chosen market. Go-to-market misalignment, your sales motion doesn't match how customers buy. Value delivery failure, customers buy, but they don't get the value promise, leading to churn. Resource allocation, spreading resource across too many initiatives instead of concentrating them. The key is identifying the linchpin, not the one that's the most obvious or the easiest to fix, but the one that is most fundamental. You can test if you found your crux. Ask these questions. If we solved this, would most other challenges become easier? If we're avoiding this because it requires hard choices or difficult change, is this actually the root cause, or is it a symptom of something else? Is this one challenge, or are we bundling multiple challenges together? Once you've identified your crux, it becomes the centre of gravity for your strategy. Your playing to win choices should all be designed to address that crux. So let's talk about how to use these frameworks together to formulate a strategy. So step 1, identify that crux. Start with the diagnostic work that you've done. Based on internal listening, customer discovery, competitor research, and market analysis, what's the fundamental challenge preventing growth? This will likely take several iterations to get right. You might think the crux is one thing and then realise through discussion that it is something deeper. But push until you can articulate it clearly. Our fundamental challenge is X. Step 2 is designing your play to win choices to address that crux. So use the crux to guide your strategy choices. If your crux is we're serving 3 customer segments with different needs and can't build deep enough capabilities for any, then where to play? Choose one segment. Be specific. Commit. How to win? Build superior capabilities for that segment's specific need. The capabilities required? Whatever's needed to genuinely differentiate in that segment. And the management systems focus resource on one segment and stop spreading across all 3. If your crux is customers buy but don't get value, therefore leading to high churn, then where to play? Narrow to customers who can actually get value, so you need to refine your ideal customer profile. How to win? Predictable value delivery, faster time to value. Capabilities required, onboarding excellence, customer success capabilities, and product optimization for core use cases. The management systems, customer health monitoring, proactive intervention, value realization tracking. Notice how the crux shapes every choice. You're not making those choices in a vacuum. You're making choices deliberately designed to crack your crux. Step 3, test for coherence. Once you've drafted your strategy choices, test whether they hang together. Does my how to win actually work in my chosen where to play? Can I actually build the capabilities my how to win requires? Do my management systems reinforce or undermine my strategy? Does this strategy actually address my crux? Have I made real choices that are specific and disputable, or am I still being vague? If the logic doesn't hold, iterate. And step 4, identify what you're not doing. It's equally important. to identify what you won't do as well as what you will. Make this explicit. Markets that we will not enter, customers we will not serve, features we will not build, channels we will not pursue, and capabilities we won't invest in. It can seem negative, but it's liberating. It creates focus. It enables you to say no with clarity, and it concentrates resource. Step 5, create your strategic narrative. Once you have clarity, distill it into a narrative that you can communicate. Here is the fundamental challenge that we face, the crux. Here's where we're choosing to compete and where we're choosing not to compete, i.e. where to play. Here's how we'll win in that chosen market, how to win. Here's what we need to be brilliant at, the capabilities. Here is how we'll operate differently, the management systems. And here's what we'll deliberately not do, keeping focus. This narrative should be clear enough that someone outside your company could understand it and articulate why they agree or disagree with your choices. If your team can't explain your strategy clearly, you don't have a strategy. You have strategic confusion. Let me close with this. Strategy formulation is decision-making at its hardest. You are making multiple interconnected choices for uncertainty. Your system one brain wants simple answers. Your biases want comfortable choice. The pressure is enormous. But that's exactly why these frameworks matter. Playing to win forces you to make specific choices across 5 dimensions and test whether they cohere. The crux forces you to identify what really matters instead of simply trying to fix everything. These aren't just strategy frameworks, they're decision-making frameworks that work with and against your cognitive biases. They force system 2 engagement. They make your beliefs explicit, and they create falsifiable hypotheses that you can test. So for CEOs, strategy formulation is about making hard choice that previous leadership avoided or didn't see. It's about focus instead of spread. It's about committing to a specific approach to winning rather than trying to be good at everything. The Playing to Win framework gives you structure, 5 cascading choices that must hang together coherently. The crux concept gives you focus. Identify that linchpin challenge that, if cracked, makes everything else easier. Together, they will give you a way to formulate a strategy that's clear, specific, and actionable, not aspirational fluff, not goal statements, and not initiative lists. Actual strategy. And what's critical? Your strategy should be disputable. Smart people should be able to disagree with your choices. If everyone naturally agrees with your strategy, it's probably not specific enough. You haven't actually made choices. Good strategy always involves risks. You're betting that your choices about where to play and how to win are right. You're betting that the capabilities that you're building will actually create advantage. You're betting that your diagnosis of the crux is accurate, and it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Growth doesn't come from playing it safe. Growth comes from making a clear bet on how you'll win and then allocating resources to execute it brilliantly. The work is formulating your strategy, understanding your crux. Make your play to win choices, test for coherence, make choices explicit, and then having made a strategy, executing on it. And that's a subject for another discussion, but everything starts with a clear strategy. You cannot execute what you haven't clearly chosen.